After Palpatine took his seat as Emperor, he made a great deal of changes. Perhaps one of the key ones was his choice to replace the loyal army of clones with citizens from the Empire itself. But what would have happened if Sidious kept the clones as the bulk of his military?
This way!
Well, the most important thing to understand is why Sidious replaced the clones. The biggest reason was that he didn't trust them. Now, you may be thinking, why wouldn't Sidious trust the very thing he used to take power? Well, that's the point. He infiltrated the army and used them to butcher the Jedi and take control. What's to stop it from happening to him? What if a Jedi, political rival or overly ambitious underling decided that they were sick of Sidious and wanted to oust him, secretly implanting another inhibitor chip, and by the time he found out, the army would have turned against him, and not even the lethal Sith Lord nor his powerful apprentice would be able to fend against such overwhelming numbers. So he really was afraid of the same thing happening to him. Now, for this theory, we're going to say that Sidious continues to use the Jango Fett clones. However, as Sidious continues to grow his army, his demand gets bigger and bigger. He needs more soldiers to enforce his rule. Pilots, infantrymen, ARC troopers, all of the demand goes up. However, to do this, he masses more and more pressure on the Kaminoans as their limits exceed and their world becomes little more as a factory for Sidious's soldiers. As well as this, Imperial presence on the world would grow stronger and stronger, as Sidious would do everything in his power to protect what would essentially be the backbone of his military, and this would only further annoy the Kaminoans as their world would essentially become a police state. Palpatine may not even keep the Kaminoans in charge, instead replacing them with a human military governor to control their facilities and keep them loyal and on track. Realistically, I think the idea that an outside force like the Rebel Alliance, Jedi or Separatist remnants would not stand a chance in taking Kamino. It would probably be as defended as Coruscant itself, as it's essentially the backbone of Sidious's regime, as I've said. However, I think a rebellion from inside the world would be fairly likely. A splinter group of Kaminoans would decide that the Empire's rule and the huge amount of business that came with it was not worth giving up their liberties, and would begin to plot an uprising to rid them of the Imperial occupation. Now, we can speculate how this would happen, as a similar event did happen in Star Wars Legends.
Officially, there never was a clone rebellion on Kamino. Unofficially, approximately 20 years after we were created, a special detachment of the Imperial 501st Legion was dispatched to Kamino with orders to eradicate an army of clones that had been bred to take arms against the Empire.
So I believe the Kaminoans would use Sidious's own tactics against him, as they don't have their own standing army. Instead, they would plant new hidden orders in the clones or stormtroopers inhibitor chips, one that allows them to secretly turn them against their masters. And this would do one of two things: either breed the clones to defend Kamino, essentially seceding from the Empire as they did in Legends. This would likely not go well. Palpatine would do anything to stop this blatant challenge to his rule, and would order the Imperials to retake Kamino, and they inevitably would. This would cause mass chaos and would likely damage much of the facilities, but the Empire would be able to rebuild, and they'd likely purge many of their own ranks who had only recently graduated the cloning facilities, but the Empire would indefinitely win regardless of the setback, and would rule the galaxy for the foreseeable future. Or two, the Kaminoans do the same thing with the Inhibitor Order, but they don't reveal it. They go on for maybe years, flooding the ranks of the Imperial military with their hidden sleeper agents until they control a large enough portion of the military. Then they reveal it. They could use their clones to bring the Imperial regime to its knees in a mighty civil war. Star Destroyers falling from the skies, Imperial commanders assassinated by their own squads, and all those dirty little Imperial secrets such as the Death Star become published. And with rebel senators and sympathizers such as Bail Organa and Mon Mothma mounting political pressure on Palpatine, they could bring the Imperial regime plummeting down. Without the backing of his huge army, which would be ripping itself apart, Sidious would be powerless, and it would only be a matter of time until he fell or lost control. Ultimately, Palpatine's use of real galactic citizens as opposed to clones was one based on self-survival, as he refused to put his fate in one world. But what do you think would happen? Would it succeed? And ultimately, do you think Sidious was smart in his decision? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please like and sub for more Star Wars content, and follow me on Twitter at TheLoreGuy for regular updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.